Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Catherine, and I will be your moderator. The presentation today is entitled Embracing Hybrid IT and Advanced Analytics in HPE NonStop Environments. Our first presenter today is Richard Buckle, CEO of Pyalla Technologies. Richard has over 25 years' experience with HPE NonStop, both directly and supporting NonStop vendors. He is a regular speaker and blogger in support of the HPE user communities. Joining Richard is Steve Wilkes, co-founder and CTO of Striim. Steve is also a key industry influencer on the topic of real-time data integration, having led the data integration efforts at Golden Gate Software and the cloud data integration strategy for Oracle. Throughout the event, please feel free to submit your questions in either the Q&A or chat panel located on the right-hand side of your screen. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Richard Buckle. Richard?
Well, good afternoon. We've got an interesting presentation, and one that I've been kicking around for some time. As Catherine said, I've been in the NonStop community a long time, starting with Tandem Computers, where I finished up there as a product manager looking after comms and networking products. I joined in session, that was then later acquired by ACI. I've been part of Golden Gate. Naturally enough, many of the people at Striim are well known to me. Formed Pyalla Technologies, but in addition to that, I have been a volunteer for many years with different user groups, user communities. Best known, I think, for being on the ITUG board and being its chairman through 4 and 5, but probably lesser known was that a few years later I was invited to join the board of the IBM Share Mainframe Group, where I became Director of Marketing in 2007-2008. So my association with the NonStop community spans not just the processes and the systems, but also the application and solution software, infrastructure software, key middleware, components, and I've also been on both sides of the connections in the data center when it comes to NonStop and the IBM mainframe. All of which is to say, I've seen a lot. And what I'm seeing of late is this whole discussion that's going on by HPE concerning digital transformation, the creation of a digital core. And it's a situation or a circumstance that I think is advantageous for the NonStop community, because in reality, the NonStop is playing a very important part. It is at the heart of mission-critical computing. And it is very much a focus point within HPE for those users looking for the solutions that have the best possible uptime. But no matter how you look at whether the discussion takes you down a road into virtualized workloads, including the running of virtualized NonStop workloads, or whether you want to run in private clouds inside the data center, adjacent to the NonStop, to the other systems, the traditional systems there, possibly into the public clouds, what we find is it's just all got to be integrated. The whole thing is complicated, and yet, we need the data on all of these systems. The last week was spent, for many of us, was spent in Germany at the GTUG, and at the GTUG event, Randy Meyer showed up on very short notice. He elected to come in on the Monday, speak to vendors, and then give a presentation on the Tuesday before jumping a plane and heading back to Houston. We were very appreciative of him dropping by, but he had a very strong message to the community. And what I found incredibly relevant were those two circles at the bottom of the slide I captured with my mobile phone as he was presenting. So if there's anyone from HPE and NonStop in the audience, I will give credit that this is a slide that Randy Meyer used and created. But the importance of the two circles is we talk about NonStop fundamentals being retained. No matter where we are going in hybrid IT, whenever there's a reference to NonStop, it is still the NonStop we know today: fault tolerant, scalable, data integrity, security, those key attributes. But what is really happening here is that we're going to see HPE step up to give us a lot of options when it comes to how we consume NonStop. And it's this consumption of NonStop that's really playing well into the hands of the hybrid IT messages. But as he presented this slide, Randy also expressed this interesting observation that when we get to transforming to digital, hybrid IT with digital transformation, the digital core, when it comes to real-time business, it's all about time and data, and indeed, time and data are now the new currency of IT, which I found a very intriguing observation. NonStop is on this slide for a very simple reason too. It is the subject of considerable investment by HPE. And when you look at the subsequent slides that HPE presents with this in this forum here, you'll see that there's only Linux, Windows, and NonStop left that HPE is investing in. And I think that's encouraging when you start to think about mission critical and when you start to think of the heritage of NonStop. But I think what's important about the fundamentals not changing really helps us transition into where I'd like to talk next, because data, it's not only about time and data, but I like the concept that data is the new oil. Texas tea, gold, etc. Whatever, use your analogy. But data is the new oil, and I thought that the follow-on statement was really incredible. Payments is the well. Transactional data is, just one piece of the picture. But when it comes to financial, retail, telco, some of the industries that are so well served by NonStop, we've now come to realize that the data that's being produced on the most mission critical of applications still needs to be integrated. It needs to make it into the data warehouses, data lakes, you name it, where the technologies are being used in support of enriched data so that businesses can run their business analytics. The trick here is the integration. If time and data are the new currency, if payments is the well we're drilling, then reality is that the integration is just the glue that holds us all together. I was caught off guard too by a little remark that Randy Meyer gave while he was at GTAG. He said that, it's really all about the data, and I couldn't think past all the political nonsense that's been going on. Wherever parties get mired in debate, they always drag the conversation back to the economy. But in our field, it's all about the data. And Randy said to us at the time, data becomes the center of the universe, irrespective of how you deploy your systems today, how far into the transformation to hybrid IT you've progressed, or no matter whether you've moved to where everything's going to clouds, including public clouds. At the end of the day, it's the data that differentiates the way we run our business. It is data that determines, in many respects, whether we stay in business. And so, as I look to where we're going, I'd just like to, think about hybrid IT in the context of the role it plays in collapsing, integrating, and transforming the systems inside our data center. I recently wrote in a blog only a few days ago commentary that Randy Meyer made of the way we are transforming to address a changing landscape. And I kind of like that concept of a changing landscape because nothing ever stays static in our world. Nothing is ever constant with respect to IT. Nothing ever stays the same. The world is hybrid today, it's recognized. And it's a hybrid when it comes to NonStop as well. It's a hybrid that, we've been blessed with a strong eco-partnership in the NonStop community for many years, but now we're starting to see a new generation of vendors emerging, partners emerging, if you like. We're all familiar with those that monitor systems, back them up, provide security. But in the world of hybrid IT and the dominant role that data is playing, we're starting to see this collection or creation of a new ecosystem. Because as Randy said, he doesn't want to be constrained by the tools or the environment that exists at the moment. So we're now starting to talk and see reference made to new vendors that maybe we're not all that familiar with. We're looking at partners that know data and know the value of data. And I suspect in time that these are going to become the prevalent vendors that take up the most of our mind share when we're talking about how best to leverage NonStop in hybrid IT. We're on a journey. I think this is a cliche that I think it's not so much a case of it being overused, the journey, but it's something that every vendor, every solution, every business in IT likes to reinforce whenever they talk about the steps they're taking down a pathway when they're faced with implementing any kind of vision. But what I wanted to point out here is the empowering the journey to a data-driven enterprise. We've got time, we've got data, we're doing integration. Okay, we accept now that we're in a data-driven enterprise. And I put rings around three of the key elements on there. I think one of the things that you'll see is that converged systems, that is the NonStop X, the type of traditional system that we are so used to in the NonStop arena, is going to be with us for quite some time. In fact, when I talked to one HPE manager with respect to how financial institutions embrace changing technology, he quietly informed me that if they were moving at glacial speed, that would be a vast improvement. So yes, we have people and enterprises that embrace the traditional systems and will continue to use them, and HPE will continue to supply them. However, what's influencing here is the arrival of cloud, and I'm probably not so much endorsing, Azure, AWS, as I would suggest that it's the guys that provide, the server farms like Rackspace and things like that. I think maybe that is a transitional step. But at the same time, I certainly see those server farms being embraced inside of the data center, and you'll reach a point where virtualized NonStop will be in there. Another HPE executive once told me when he walked me through a data center only 2 or 3 years ago that he'd like to be able to wave his hands and say, NonStop, it's in here somewhere, but I don't know where it is. It's running somewhere. And that's really the concept or the prospect that comes from running virtualized NonStop workloads. But I think the third one's going to also attract considerable attention, and it's already under debate within the HPE community, is NonStop as a service. Whether it's NonStop, the database as a service, whether it's a solution running on NonStop in the database as a service, whether it's the blockchain that's been implemented now on NonStop on top of NonStop SQL. A lot of what people are now talking about is an option to consume that's no longer a capital investment, but more or less an operational investment. I just want the NonStop as I need it. So here you have 3 different directions for the product. But these new choices for NonStop users, with these kind of radical approaches, are taking us, in this journey far from where we started. But at the end of the day, it's still NonStop. And it was a message that was conveyed more than once. If we're going virtualized NonStop, it's not virtualized almost NonStop. It's not virtualized maybe NonStop. It's virtualized NonStop. If we're going to consume a service, it's a NonStop service being consumed. It's not in part a NonStop or based on or leveraging NonStop. NonStop is a very potent word or brand or label in HPE, and it means a very specific thing, as we saw just a short time ago. Yesterday, HPE announced its financial results for the quarter, and they were pretty upbeat. But amongst the questions that the financial community asked HPE CEO Antonio Nerio was about the progress being made on his initiative, HPE Next, which is an initiative that Neri launched to very much streamline the company. But what I found intriguing was with the separation between volume sales and value sales. In the value sales, over a very short period of time, he's moved from 26 platforms down to just 7. And one of those platforms is NonStop. So where mission-critical computing demands users deploy NonStop, the converged systems, the traditional systems, will always be an option. But if you want to stay to the left, with a converged system, that's fine. If you want to move to the right and run with a private cloud, virtualized NonStop, or maybe, more likely on those server farms and public clouds, then that's an option that you can use. And at the same time, neither or none of these options takes you away from any responsibility of opening up to having your data integrated with the rest of the data center. Hybrid, by definition, is more than one. And whichever way we cut this cake, there will be NonStop plus. We are mission critical, but there's so many other solutions and systems that business depends on today that whether we take the left, the traditional, whether we take the right, the more aggressive path, we still have to integrate the data. I think there's no better example of the challenge that has been accepted within HPE, not only just of the reduced number of platforms they've got, but in the fact that HPE has elected to put NonStop again at the heart of their own operations. And I'm not going to talk too much about this, as I believe Steve's going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but suffice to say, it's at the heart of HPE's data center, and it's running NonStop SQLMX, and it's got multi-tenancy support now, and it's actually collating and integrating the information from many disparate systems onto NonStop SQLX, and then responsible for providing the content to any of the user applications HPE happens to run. It's a substantial investment by HPE in its own technology, and it's working well. But here's the thing that comes from integration. If you like, this is kind of like the special sauce in all of this. We are going to see, when we start doing this, as Randy said, we're going to see crazy new insights into how things work. And the word things was very deliberate. I went up and asked him, I said, what things? He said, everything. Because what we're going to do is we're going to find out things about topics when we didn't even know we were going to ask the question. When we get all the data and put it under the microscope, when we let the analytics have at it, then we're going to see new things. We're going to see changes in behavior. We're going to see changes in demands. We're going to see changes in location. Yes, technology, I believe, is on a journey, but let's not forget that the people are also on a journey as well, as is the business. It may be an overused cliche, the journey, the path, the steps we're taking, the baby steps, the incremental, but at the same time, we are moving forward. And it is so important to remain in business that we consider aggressively collapsing the traditional IT data center silos that we have created in the past. Remember all those promotions for understanding APIs and network protocols so we could buy best of breed? And as we solved one business problem with the best of breed solution in one area, we got another one, and then another one, and then another one. And over time, our data center was populated with disparate systems, all with their own ownership of data. A terrible model in hindsight. But we are dismantling that. And the path we're taking to data integration, I think, is very important to recall that as we break the silos down, we have actually got the mechanics, the mechanisms in place. And so I think the companies that are best placed to do the integration are those companies that have been involved in replication for some time. I'm not going to touch on this topic much more than to say that central in my understanding is change data capture. And when you get to change data capture, the roots of Striim will allow us to take NonStop deeper down this journey into integration. Forrester Research has once asked us, is your digital transformation driving seamless customer journeys? And I think this is where I'd like to end my intro here, is because it is not only a journey, but it's customer driven. They want a better interaction, a better association with us. So HP NonStop customers on a digital transformation, as I say, is all about a better integration of data. Data is front and center. It's the data, stupid. We know about time. We know about data. So embracing hybrid IT and then creating an environment to perform advanced analytics is inclusive of NonStop. So let's not forget our role, or the role that NonStop plays in mission critical and its significance to giving us the data we need when we want to drive the business. With that, I'd like to hand over to Steve. Thanks, Steve. I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Richard. So I'll just follow on from that wonderful introduction, and we'll start by talking about databases. And HP NonStop obviously can be used for other things. It can be utilized as an amazing, reliable processing environment and supporting microservices and all those kinds of new things. But at its core, it's primarily used as a database environment. So when you're thinking about integration, and in the new world of integration, we're talking about real-time or streaming integration, then you have to ask the question, how do you continuously collect real-time data from a database? Because a database is a historical record of what's happened in the past. And that's true of NonStop. It's also true of other databases as well. But you can't use like SQL queries against a database continually, because that puts a lot of pressure on the database, like using timestamps or something. And you can't use triggers because they're typically very high overhead as well. So you need to use a different technology. And as Richard inferred, the technology of choice is change data capture, which is a non-intrusive way of collecting streaming database changes. And it works fundamentally because databases write transactions to logs. It could be the TMF log on NonStop, it could be an audit log, it could be any other type of log, right? And they need to do this inherently for recovery and kind of other purposes. So change data capture leverages that. So instead of using timestamps or triggers, it reads the transaction logs, and it can then convert the DML operations into real-time events, so change events directly from the transaction logs. And what that gives you is change events that contain the data that changed or the data that was inserted or deleted, along with additional other metadata, which can then be enriched and utilized in a whole host of different kind of streaming integration use cases. And this is kind of inherently the nature of data. Data was never created in a batch. We got to batch processing because of technology limitations, because storage was cheap, memory CPU was expensive, it was easier to store stuff on disk and then process it in a batch at the end of the day. But now there's no more end of day, there's no more batch windows. Data is produced continuously, and the nature of data is it's created because things happen. Every single row in a database or log line in a machine log or device is sending you data, that will happen because things happen in the real world. And so to collect the real nature of data, you need to utilize streaming technologies. And so stream data out as it's being created. And so streaming integration has emerged as this major infrastructure requirement. And streaming integration is all about continuously moving any enterprise data, being able to handle extreme volumes of data at scale, maintaining high throughput and low latency, while also being able to process that data analyze it, and correlate it while it's moving in order to make that data valuable, give you visibility into it, and do this in a verifiable fashion. And streaming integration can be used for lots and lots of different use cases. We have customers that are taking data from databases and pushing that out in real time onto Kafka as a way of distributing data around the enterprise, adopting cloud technologies, or delivering data into Hadoop to keep that continually up to date so they can have continuous analytics, or even doing the analytics in memory. So having real-time analytics happening within the platform, giving you instant visibility into the data and real-time alerts. And of course, with the inherent streaming nature of device data, doing Internet of Things, edge processing, edge analytics, on-premise analytics, cloud analytics for IoT is also a crucial use of streaming integration. And it's all about modernization. As Richard said, HP NonStop is part of your ecosystem, but it's an essential part of the ecosystem. However, different technologies are suitable for different things. It may be more difficult to build analytics in the NonStop environment, but it's easier to build that analytics maybe in a Hadoop environment or a Kafka environment. And it all comes down to the questions you want to ask of the data. A data warehouse is good for certain types of analytics, but if you want to store huge amounts of data for training machine learning models, then you're probably looking at something like Hadoop or blob storage in the cloud or some other scalable data storage mechanism. If you want to understand connections in data, you may want to use a graph database. If you want to do spatial queries, you probably want to use a spatial database. So integrating these newer technologies and as a way of leveraging your data and being able to get value out of it is essential. And so streaming integration is the way of doing that. It's the foundation for data modernization. It allows you to build the shiny aluminum and glass structure that is all these new technologies on the side of your existing castles. And HP NonStop is a great example of a castle. So the Striim platform has been built for streaming integration. And what it starts with is real-time data collection. So continuously collecting data wherever it's created. And with things like sensors and message queues, they can push data. So we collect that data as it's being pushed to us. With log files, we will read at the end of the file and stream out new data as it's being written, of course, handling, reading multiple files in parallel, log rollover, doing that across multiple machines in parallel, being able to take data from cloud and big data environments in real time, and then also, importantly, with databases for HP NonStop, Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, etc., we have change data capture technologies that enable us to see the change that's happening in the database, all the inserts, updates, and deletes in real time as they're happening. So this gives you real-time streams of data. Those streams of data can be moved anywhere within the enterprise or cloud and then delivered to suitable targets. So you may want to deliver change data from a database into Kafka, or log files into Hadoop, or sensor data into the cloud. Move any data from anywhere to anywhere in real time with really low latency. In certain circumstances, we ship with Kafka as part of our product, and that enables you to do this in a way that it can be rewound. You can go back in time and replay utilizing Kafka. You can also decouple applications using Kafka. But pretty often, people aren't just moving raw data from one place to another. They're doing some processing on that. And this is all done through our SQL-based in-memory stream processing. There's continuous queries happening on the data as it's being collected in data pipelines that can be arbitrarily complex, where in each step, you could be doing some filtering, some transformation, some aggregation of that data, and also enrichment. You can load large amounts of reference data into our in-memory platform as a distributed data grid, and then join that data in real time with the stream data to enrich it and give it additional context. You can also correlate data across multiple data streams together and do statistical analysis, anomaly detection, and complex event processing, where you're looking for patterns and sequences of events over time in the data. And you can also build real-time dashboards. using our dashboard builder, generate alerts, and integrate with other things. So common use cases these days are integrating the real-time streaming data with a pre-built machine learning model that allows you to make real-time predictions, real-time anomaly detection, etc. And this is all done in an enterprise-grade platform that is inherently distributed, scalable, reliable, and secure. We have a lot of sources and targets we support. This slide is invariably out of date because we're releasing new sources and targets with every release. I can see that we're actually missing Apache Kudu as a target on there, which we announced very recently. But you can go to our website and check out sources and targets to find out everything that we support. All of the processing on the platform is done through data flows. These data flows are basically steps that things that you want to do with the data. At any step, you can write that data out into an intermediate stream. By default, all those streams are in memory only, very, very fast, run at almost network speed when you're going between nodes. But you can switch any of those streams to use Kafka so that they are persistent, so you can rewind into them for reliability and application decoupling purposes. All of the processing, as I mentioned, each one of those black boxes can be a SQL-based query that is doing transformation, filtering, correlation, etc. on the data. And at any point, at any one of those streams, you can write the data out to any of the targets. So this is how you work with our platform. Through this UI, you can build these data flows really quickly. We also have a scripting language that you can use if you like, text editors. And you can switch, you can mix and match. You can start with text, script, go into the UI, start with the UI, go into the script. We also have a dashboard builder that allows you to drag and drop visualizations into the dashboard and then configure those to talk to the back-end data stream, so you can very quickly get visibility into your data. Now, Striim can be used for a lot of different things with HP NonStop. So, and in addition to being able to read the transactional data from the audit files, we can also read log files in real time. We can read TCP, SOAP, web service type of logs in real time and stream all those into the platform, and then do processing and analytics on it, and then deliver that to any of the targets that we mentioned. We support change data capture for HP NonStop, non-intrusively collecting real-time data, being able to read in parallel across multiple audit trails. We have exactly once processing guarantees for zero data loss with recovery and reliability built in. And we can spread these non-stop processes across the CPUs to really scale out. And we handle lots of different failure scenarios, like CDC processes down, the Striim platform goes down, etc., for truly reliable processing. Now, we support CDC for SQL-MX, SQL-MP, and NScribe, and support the NonStop X and I series. And you can also read in a batch fashion, so in cases where you may want to do an initial load of data from HP NonStop into some target, you can do that. You can also write into HP NonStop MX through our database writer. This is a use case where basically you can do real-time data-based to database replication. So take data from any of the source databases we support and deliver to any of the targets we support. And the general process here is that you start change data capture, and then you do an initial load from the source to deliver to target tables. And the reason for that is that initial load usually takes some time. So while that's happening, while you're doing that initial replication of one database to another, changes will happen. Unless you have the luxury of quiescing your database, changes will happen on the source. So if you start change data capture to start with, and then once the initial load's done, you can apply all those changes to the target, and now it's up to date. But if you keep that going, then any changes that happen to source will also be replicated to the target. So not only do you have an up-to-date database now, but you also have one that's continually being updated to represent the original source. And if you add the Kafka streams into this, you can have mission-critical reliability and exactly once processing. You can also do this bi-directionally, so you can go from HP NonStop to any of the other databases that we support CDC for, and are able to then keep two databases in sync and have them both apply changes to each other. And again, with exactly one's processing guarantees. We also have use cases where people are delivering into Hadoop technologies. So being able to take the data from HP NonStop, also do an initial load, but then ongoing changes using CDC can also be populated into Hadoop to keep Hadoop up to date continuously. And the same with cloud technologies. So we have customers that are delivering into things like Microsoft Azure SQL Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery, the cloud analytics databases. And again, you can do the initial load into the cloud, followed by ongoing change delivery to keep the cloud up to date. And with all of these solutions, all of these integration solutions, it's actually pretty trivial to build dashboards using our platform so you can continuously monitor what's going on. So you can see what's happening across different source tables, what the load is over time, what the lag is over time, and truly understand what's happening in your integration flows. And this can be scaled across multiple tables and customized to really meet your business operations requirements. We'll talk about a couple of use cases. We have a major aerospace company that wanted to get much faster insight into their parts databases, and in order to understand what's going on with parts and to optimize the parts delivery process that's essential for keeping planes in the air. So this enables us to deliver data into Hadoop from HP NonStop so that they can do operational reporting for real-time understanding what's going on and delivering alerts. So the architecture is reasonably complicated. You have data coming from a parts repository, which is running on HP NonStop. That initially populated Hadoop through an initial load, and then subsequently using change data capture to keep it up to date. There's also data coming from Oracle database, which is an ERP system that is used to enrich that streaming data with additional information about the parts before it's actually moved into Hadoop. And then some additional clickstream data, which is coming from web service logs that indicates parts requests. And that's being distributed out onto Kafka for notification purposes. So there's a path here where you're taking data from the previous systems, the transactional systems, and moving it into a technology appropriate for the types of analytics and the forecasting and the parts management that they actually want to do, along with real-time notifications. Another use case here with a global technology provider where they wanted to get insight into their order processing, and there was no real-time visibility into this order processing, and they couldn't understand the path of orders, whether any delay in orders, until like 1 or 2 days because of the architecture, because it wasn't designed for real time. It was designed for more batch analytics and kind of ETL type operations to actually build the warehouse in which they actually did their BI. So to get real time analytics on it, they built an architecture where they took data from an Oracle database. In this case, they're delivering it into HP NonStop. So they're taking data from Oracle into HP NonStop because that was the technology of choice. This is what, and this is actually HPE, this is what was needed. This is the technology that had been chosen for doing the analytics. And so being able to move the data in real time into NonStop and into Hadoop with some data going out onto Kafka for notifications and alerting enables you to get visibility into this order processing immediately. So if you're a NonStop user, and I'm imagining almost everyone on here is, the key value propositions here are that we can deliver data in real time from HP NonStop to the rest of the enterprise. and expand the impact of HPE NonStop by combining that data with other enterprise data for any purpose, and being able to deliver other data into HPE NonStop if it's the most suitable technology for the types of analytics that you want to do. Being able to deliver the HPE NonStop data into analytics, whether that is Hadoop or whether it's Kafka or some other target, in the right format without having to do extensive coding, enabling you to get immediate insights into what's happening in HPE NonStop in real time through the dashboards and also including alerts. And being able to build these dashboards to visualize your HPE NonStop data without needing another product. So I hope that you can understand I tried to move fast here, so there's a lot of content. But if you want more information about HPE NonStop solutions, you can go to our website. You can contact us if you want more information. You can also ask questions right now. So I'll hand back over to Catherine, who I think probably has some questions for us.
Great. Thanks so much, Richard and Steve. As a reminder, you can submit your questions via the Q&A or chat panel in the right-hand side of your screen. While we're waiting, I'll mention that we will be sending a link to the recording to this webinar within the next day or so. Please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. So let's go ahead and turn to our questions. Our first question, I'm not exactly sure when this came in the presentation, but the question is, does this include non-audited files? So I'm not sure if that was an ingestion question. Steve, does that does that ring a bell for you where that might have come in?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly where that came in. As I mentioned, in addition to reading the audit trails, we can read additional files and stream from those. But I think the question is, if you have a non-audited Nscribe system where the changes aren't being audited, can we handle that? And honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into that and get back to the questioner. But that's one we can get back to, I think.
Sounds good. Ray, we'll get back to you on that one. The next question is, has CDC been used to perform stress testing of a target production platform by providing a live transaction feed to it from the source?
I mean, that's certainly a use case you could do. I mean, we have obviously tested our platform on how well we scale with CDC. And we're able to do 30 to 50 megabytes per second of data being generated. So we can handle quite large volumes of CDC. But exactly that use case, we'll have to investigate if anyone's actually done that for utilizing stress testing of a source using CDC. That's an interesting use case, though.
Great. The next question, does Striim run on-prem only, or if not, what cloud environments does Striim run on?
That's a great question. So Striim actually is a Java-based platform. It runs anywhere Java runs. So yes, you can run on-premise on actual machines, on VMs, but we also have offerings in the AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, so you can spin instances up there. You can also install us if you want. Spin up a VM and then install Striim on that VM yourself. So, I mean, those are some options. We also have a Dockerized image, so you can, with just a couple of commands, download the Striim Docker image and run that as well. So that would run anywhere, obviously, Docker runs, including cloud environments. So it's a very flexible platform that has this hybrid architecture that spans enterprise and cloud.
Excellent. The next question, does Kafka, does Kafka produce a straight port, or it says, the actual words are, does Kafka product a straight support to HPE NonStop JVM, and Striim supports both producer and consumer endpoints.
So yes, Striim supports producer and consumer endpoints. We have, in addition to building Kafka into our product so it can run transparently as the backing for a stream. As I mentioned, our streams are default in-memory high-speed streams, but you can, with a click in the UI, switch that transparently to a Kafka-based stream. But in addition to that, we have specific readers for Kafka, so you can read specific data as part of a data flow from almost any version of Kafka. We support Kafka 0.8 through to the current version, because they change the APIs continually between versions. So, but we can support all of them, and we can write into Kafka. When you're reading and writing from Kafka, we support lots of different formats as well. Anything from delimited JSON, XML, Avro, etc. So we have pretty comprehensive, complete support for Kafka. I am not aware, I think when you talk about the JVM, you're probably talking about JVM running on OSS. I'm not aware that we have tested it there, but I can check on that one and get back to you.
Great. It looks like we've answered all of the questions. On behalf of Steve Wilkes and Richard Buckle and the entire Striim team, I would like to thank you again for joining us for today's discussion. Have a great rest of your day.